Hello. In the second game of round 2 in Group A, we had the game between Hikaru Nakamura and Andrey Esipenko. We had the English opening and the variation was 4 knights. After this, knight f3, knight c6, and now g3. Esipenko chose d5 to play some kind of reversed Sicilian, cd5, knight d5, and bishop g2. Here it's possible to go for bishop e6, bishop e7, and go for the short castle, continuing the spirit of Sicilian. But here Esipenko chose bishop c5. And in some games, knight e5 was seen on the top level, and after knight c3, there was bishop c6, bc, bc, queen d5, knight f3 goes back, and after bishop h3, black was a pawn down, but he had a bishop pair which fully compensates the missing pawn. And this was played with black by Magnus, this was played by Rajabov. Hikaru didn't choose this one, he chose to castle. Castles, and now queen c2, a move which has never been played before on top level. Before, typical moves were d3, that was played by Magnus in some Chess24 events. And after h6, he took, and went for knight d2, followed by knight c4. This was the game between Magnus Carlsen and Wesley So from some Magnus Carlsen invitational tournament. But Nakamura surprised Esipenko by queen c2. He went back to f6, after which Nakamura plays a3, tries to expand by b4 and to fianchetto his bishop, and now knight d4 by black. Also a5 was very interesting to consider, to stop b4, but he went for this, which is also fine. Nakamura takes, ed, and now b4. A very nice in-between move, which is putting some dilemma to black. Where does this bishop go? First of all, if you take on c3 here, white takes on c5, and after taking, bishop takes, white's position is excellent, and he has a bishop pair, tremendous pressure on b7. He's going to play rook b1 next, so that's not something that black wants. If he goes to e7, white can play knight a5 with the idea of knight c5, which may be a bit unpleasant for black. And that's why Esipenko played bishop b6. But there's an issue with this move as well. The issue is that after knight a4, white is going to capture a bishop pair. And after rook e8, takes, white has a bishop pair, but still he has to utilize this bishop pair to the fullest to open up somehow the position. And first he plays e3, tries to eliminate the pawn. For example, if he played d3, that would leave this e-pawn very, very weak. And after bishop g4, black could put some pressure on the e2 pawn. After rook e1, c6, he would somehow neutralize the bishop from g2, and the pressure on e2 might become very unpleasant. After rook e7, queen d7, rook a, e8, that could be a problem for white. So that's why he plays e3, tries to exchange his potential weakness. And now Esipenko plays d3. And the reason why, well, Hikaru is going to play bishop b2 on the next move. If you take on e3, there's fe3. And white goes bishop b2, puts some pressure on the knight on f6, the f file is opened, so there is lots of pressure. Plus, the bishop on g2 is doing some damage. Black's position is quite unpleasant in that case. So he tries to play d3, Hikaru plays queen c3. Maybe it's more precise to go queen c4, stopping knight e4. And if bishop e6, you might think that he's getting a tempo and black is fine, but after queen c3, now the e file is closed and there is no knight e4 anymore. So white's going to go bishop b2 next and put some pressure on the long diagonal by his battery. And if bishop d5, there is f3, and with e4 next, bishop b2, he's going to slowly build up some pressure. He went for this, which allowed Esipenko to go knight e4, and now he goes queen c4. Also, it's good to take on e4, take and go f3, bishop b2, rook fc1, and again, put some pressure on the c file. Let's say this, bishop b2, f6, rook fc1, and then at certain moment to go e4 and put some pressure g4, g5, and to open up this diagonal for a very strong battery. But he went for queen c4. There was no hurry to exchange pieces. Now Esipenko plays bishop f5 and now bishop b2. Just to mention that knight d2 is not possible because of queen c3. Double attack on the g7 and d2. So he went for queen d7. And now Hikaru decides to exchange. And Esipenko took with the bishop. Also, rook takes leads to a slightly more pleasant position after queen c3, f6. You need to push with f3 to have some defense, because if you allow bishop to get to f3, it's a very unpleasant position for white. So this bathtub with these 5 pawns is very useful as a defensive tool. And after rook e7, rook fc1, white still has some pressure. Maybe it's even better to go with this rook, because you need this rook maybe for some actions on the king side. Maybe let's say rook f2, rook g2, and then start pushing g4, g5. Esipenko took with the bishop, f3, bishop c6, and now rook ac1. With this move, he is putting some indirect pressure on the c7 pawn. And now to defend the c7 pawn, he plays rook e7, because maybe b5 was a good move. Now Nakamura plays queen f4, trying to get queen g5 and hit the g7 pawn, which now provokes a slight weakening move, f6. Now rook c4, rook d8, and now white just doubles his rooks on the c file, puts additional pressure, and now he wants to go b5 next to be able to capture on c7. For example, if you play h6, there is b5, and after this to capture, which could open up the position. And in this position, Esipenko played queen e6. He saw that b5 is possible, but he missed the additional possibility that Hikaru had. The better move was to play b5 to stop b5 from happening. And after, let's say, rook d4, there is queen c8, and always there's this unpleasant g4. And after this, bishop d4, black would have very tough time to defend this, even though the queen side is blocked, but this potential of g5 at some point and opening up the g file is very scary for black. Instead, he went for queen e6, and now Hikaru strikes with b5. Esipenko took, and now he doesn't capture on c7 immediately. He goes rook e4. For example, if he takes on c7 here, then he takes bishop c6, and somehow this rook on c7 is stuck. Black might be able to organize some counterattack. So Hikaru chose a better way. Hikaru chose a better way to get the advantage, and he played rook e4. Queen f7, and now he takes. Queen e7, he took on c7. The b7 pawn is exposed. Rook d7 is played, and now first check, rook d8, because after king f7, white has queen f5, hitting the h7 pawn, the bishop, and if bishop c6 happens to counterattack the f pawn, there is this check. And if king e8, there is rook e8, losing the queen. If g6, then you take on h7, take on g6, and the position becomes unplayable, followed by rook e8 next. So Esipenko chose the only move, rook d8, and now you can pause the video if you want to find the right move for white. Hikaru played bishop f6. It's only a beginning of the combination. Now black doesn't have plenty of choices. If he takes like this, then queen takes. Rook takes rook, and it's over. So gf is the only move. now first this check. And we'll see why is that check important so much. If king h8, you can again pause the video to find the right move. The right move is queen b4. Very, very nice move. Using this queen which is overloaded on e7. And if it takes on b4, there is rook d8 and then capturing the queen. If queen d7, there is just exchange of rooks. And you take on b5, after which white has 6 pawns, black has 5, but his pawns are just useless. Look at this. What else was there? If king f7, there is queen h5. And again, after king g7, we have the similar position. And this version of the queen endgame is much better than what happened in the game, because in the game at least black took the a3 pawn. But let's go back to the game. Black played king f8, which led to taking, and queen b4. The whole combination works because the bishop on b5 was loose. And after queen e7, queen b5, now at least black takes the a3 pawn. And now he wants to play queen c1 to capture the d2 pawn. So that's why king goes to f2, avoids any checks. And now queen c5. For example, if he goes back to d6, this doesn't solve problems for black, because now white can just expand by pushing h4, f4, g4, and slowly putting some pressure. These pawns would be just too powerful because you have 2 extra pawns on this side. Plus black has to defend the d pawn, so his queen is not so mobile as it should be. So he played this, but now he's losing the d pawn. He wanted to push his b pawn, but white is able to stop it by queen c3, queen e7, and now king goes closer, just in case to control the b pawn. King g7, and now queen d4. The queen is slowly improving its position. Queen f7. Black always has to be careful about some checks on the 7th rank and losing the pawns. Queen g4, king h8, and now queen b4. This blockade works now. For example, if black offers the trade of queens by queen c4, the endgame is lost for black, because after taking, and d3, now black has to push. And now, first white just blocks the pawns, and then he starts pushing his own. After d4, king f7, e4, king e6, g4, and slowly these pawns start marching. And after this, however you take, let's say this, let's say king f7, h5, now black has to worry about 2 sides. This one on the left side in the center, and the right side on the king side. If you go king e7, then just d6, king e6, and g6, and the pawns just promote. So queen c4 doesn't work. He plays queen e8. Now Nakamura puts additional pressure by queen d6, queen f7, and now queen c5 back. Queen e8, and now the g pawn can start. Now all the pawns on the king side are going to march. h4, h5, queen d7, h5, and after king g8 and h6, black resigned. Even though he has a passed pawn on the queen side, he cannot create any counterplay. For example, if he does this, there is d4. Now these central pawns are going to run, and the queen cannot get any checks to white's king. And even if it gets, white can escape these checks. See you soon, and bye-bye.